The horror genre covers such a wide, vast spectrum, encompassing a near limitless number of styles and tones, but sometimes the most traumatic, terrifying tales and moments don't actually take place within the world of horror, and that's what the order of the day is here, as we spotlight those soul-shaking, nerve-rattling, memory-searing movies that feel like horror movies without actually being horror movies. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the 10 scariest movies that aren't horror movies. Number 10. We need to talk about Kevin. Tonally and stylistically, Lynn Ramsey's masterful We Need to Talk About Kevin tap dances on the fringes of horror throughout, even if it's officially a psychological thriller/drama. Basically, We Need to Talk About Kevin is every parent's worst nightmare, as Tilda Swinton's Eva struggles with her inability to bond with her son, while also coming to terms with the horrific acts he commits as a teenager. Tense, doused in a nice red tint and leaving enough ambiguity to haunt you long after the end credits roll, this 2011 adaptation of Lionel Shriver's novel tackles an extremely difficult subject with impressive tact and bold honesty. We Need to Talk About Kevin is anything but an easy watch, but it's a refreshingly confrontational piece about how psychopaths are made. Number 9. Come and See Me. War movies often tread a fine line of either glorifying combat or demonizing the human cost, and in the latter case, nothing is more impactful than 1985's Come and See Me, a dramatization of Nazi Germany's occupation of Belarus. Come and See Me is a profoundly upsetting, nightmarish look at how war ruins youthful hope and innocence. With young Alexei Krochenko on mesmerizing form, seriously, this could well be the greatest performance ever from a child actor. Come and See Me is unflinching in its brutality, but manages to never feel exploitative or without purpose. The sort of film where you definitely need something light and breezy lined up for afterwards. Such is the impact of what is a truly fascinating, stunning movie. A fascinating, stunning movie that will forever remain etched into your memory. Number 8. Contagion. When it was released back in 2011, many thought Steven Soderbergh's Contagion was, yes, entertaining, but also a little too ridiculous and totally detached from reality. And then COVID happened, making Contagion's depiction of how humanity would react to a pandemic worryingly accurate, capturing the paranoia, the selflessness, and sadly the grifters trying to profit from the whole situation. For the virus in Contagion, it ravages the world and thinks nothing of killing off major cast members, including the opening act demise of Gwyneth Paltrow totally out of nowhere. And with Soderbergh's directing style, that only further highlights the eeriness of how the virus takes lives, obliterates social order, and scarily shows us who we really are. Number 7. Threads. Oof, probably the most terrifying, bleak British movie ever made. Threads is a docudrama depicting the literal and figurative fallout of nuclear war between the US and the Soviet Union. With the grounded setting of Sheffield, England, the deeply immersive camera work here gives a relentless account of the physical, mental, economic, and general societal impact of a nuclear strike, making all other post-apocalyptic films feel almost cartoonish by comparison. Threads has a matter-of-factness to it that makes its grim sights feel depressingly believable, even 40 years after its release, with this made-for-TV movie being a never-ending parade of unforgettable imagery and horrors, despite having no supernatural monsters or mass serial killers at play. Threads is the sort of film that you watch once and it stays with you forever. Genuinely, this is an utter masterpiece. But of course, not all masterpieces are meant to be sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops, and that is exactly the case with this one. Number 6. The Father. For anyone who's ever had to deal with it firsthand, dementia is a horrible, brutal disease that reduces someone to a shell of themselves, lost in a fog of memories from yesteryear, while simultaneously ravaging the very essence of that person in the here and now. It's awful, it's the worst, it's soul-crushing, and it's something you would not wish on your very worst enemy. And in The Father, director Florian Zeller does a devastatingly effective job of capturing the harsh reality of all of this, with Anthony Hopkins putting in arguably the best performance of his storied career, complete with winning the Best Actor Oscar. The Father smartly uses a non-linear editing style to capture the emotional destruction caused by someone losing grasp of their own identity, exploring the gut-wrenching personal impact and havoc this disease wreaks on a person and on their near family. Number 5. Zodiac. Taking the mystery thriller approach rather than going all-out horror, David Fincher's Zodiac dramatizes the real-life Zodiac killer's San Francisco rampage of the 60s and 70s in a brilliantly atmospheric, uneasy way. Of course, making this all the more unsettling is the small fact that the identity of the Zodiac killer has never been formally discovered. Sure, there are plenty of theories and guesswork at play, but officially, Zodiac remains at large to this very day. With this 2007 movie, Fincher delivers one of the most chilling cat and mouse games in cinema history, underlining the cold brutality with which such serial killers operate, backed up by extensive research and scarily meticulous detail. Number 4. The Zone of Interest. Focused on the Holocaust, the Oscar-winning Zone of Interest approaches its extremely delicate subject matter in a rather unconventional way, keeping the audience on the periphery, observing the terrors of the Auschwitz concentration camp from afar. Focusing on a house next to this camp, this 2023 release doesn't show those heinous acts in full, instead only showing us the smoke of trains pulling into a nearby station and putting the grim reality of these horrors very much in the background. The Zone of Interest also heavily relies on its Oscar-winning sound design, with so much of its off-screen terror conveyed through bone-chilling screams, gunshots and barking dogs, capturing the essence of evil from these nauseating times. Number 3. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So intense is some of the imagery in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, this family-friendly film played a major part in the launch of the PG-13 rating. Sure, Raiders of the Lost Ark had its traumatizing face melt sequence, but Temple of Doom took that brutality and turned the volume way up to 11, enslaving children, showcasing black magic, and literally ripping someone's heart out as part of a human sacrifice. Even director Steven Spielberg wasn't shy about some of Temple of Doom's horrors, once saying how the film outpoltered Poltergeist. For writer and producer George Lucas, he's detailed how the film ended up much darker than he and Spielberg ever intended, largely due to where their personal lives were at the time due to both men going through relationship breakdowns, just as they were putting together Temple of Doom. While Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom does divide some of the franchise's fan base to this very day, this 1984 picture is nothing if not bold, being a surprisingly ballsy horror fest for such a mainstream blockbuster release. Number 2. Requiem for a Dream. Darren Aronofsky has some absolute belters on his resume, be that The Wrestler, Black Swan, Mother, The Whale, heck, even Noah has plenty of plus points. But amongst this resume, nothing is as outright trippy as Requiem for a Dream, which says a lot considering how bonkers Black Swan gets at times. Highlighting the soul-destroying perils of drug addiction, this 2000 movie is deeply disturbing but utterly hypnotic at the same time, luring in audiences with its stylish filmmaking and razor-sharp editing. This is a picture that offers no fun times or easy respite for its beleaguered central characters, each of whom is on their own unavoidable path of destruction in one way or another. Perhaps more than any other film ever made, Requiem for a Dream forensically details how drug abuse can erode a person's sense of self. Jared Leto, Jennifer Connelly and Marlon Wayans all put in sublimely heartbreaking performances here, but nobody is more impressive than the great Ellen Burstyn, who received a Best Actress Oscar nomination for her work. By the time all is said and done with Requiem for a Dream, you'll likely be left far more shook than by 99% of actual horror movies. Number 1. Mholland Drive. While many film fans might consider David Lynch's Mholland Drive a straight-up horror movie, and honestly, who could blame them, Lynch himself insists that this is not a horror film. And frankly, who are we to argue with David Lynch? All the same, this delirious mystery thriller offers up one of the most terrifying depictions of identity crisis ever committed to film, complete with perfectly executed jump scares, deeply disturbing imagery, and a constant overcurrent of pervasive dread. Even now, over 20 years after its initial release, Mholland Drive's narrative remains up for debate, with the film so acutely feeling like the experience of someone losing their mind in cinematic form, helped by superb performances from Naomi Watts and Laura Harring. Of course, like so much of David Lynch's work, the tone of Mholland Drive is forever uncomfortable, making it essentially horror adjacent.